Is there a more disrespected quarterback in the NFL than Jared Goff? Heading into the 2025 season, PFF ranked him 14th, and on ESPN's top 10 list by traits, he cracked just one: mechanics. That's it. In a league obsessed with mobility and flash, Goff, a pure pocket passer, is easy to overlook. But here's the truth. Over the past few seasons in Detroit, Goff has been elite, embarrassing anyone who called him a bridge quarterback and rebuilding himself as one of the most efficient, dangerous, and clutch quarterbacks in the NFL. This is the scary truth about Jared Goff. It's pretty difficult for a first overall pick to find themselves in the role of likable underdog, especially one who passed for 4,688 yards and 32 touchdowns en route to a Super Bowl in their third season. But that's exactly what happened to Jared Goff. The two-time Pro Bowler was thriving early in his career, seemingly setting himself up to be in the enviable position of quarterback for offensive genius Sean McVay for the long-term future. A Super Bowl appearance in year 3 should really have been the ultimate way to lay the foundations for a long and fruitful partnership. But instead, it turned out to be the beginning of the end. Goff was easily flustered by a superb Patriots defense in that Super Bowl, completing just 50% of his passes for 229 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception, managing just 3 points on the day. And while his passing numbers were still solid in the following 2019 season, tensions were beginning to rise behind the scenes. Goff threw a career-high 16 interceptions over that 2019 campaign, and an increasingly frustrated Sean McVay had less and less patience for his quarterback's inconsistencies as the season went on. This relationship declined to the point that when the LA Rams made the playoffs in the 2020 season, Sean McVay actually benched Goff in favor of backup quarterback John Wolford. Goff had been injured over the last few games of the regular season, but recovered in time for the playoffs, only for McVay to leave him on the sidelines. Just 2 years after he had led his team to a Super Bowl, winning his second Pro Bowl as a result, Goff was completely out of favor with his head coach. Therefore, it did not come as much of a surprise to see him traded in the offseason, heading to Detroit as part of a hefty package for Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford. McVay had come to the conclusion that he had a Super Bowl caliber roster, and that Goff was not the right man to help them reach its full potential. In fairness to the Rams coach, he would be vindicated, as Stafford led the Rams to Super Bowl glory in his first season with the team. Meanwhile, Goff was heading to Detroit to take over one of the NFL's most struggling franchises. Not only that, but the 2 first-round picks that were sent to Detroit alongside him said everything you needed to know about what the LA Rams thought of him. To them, he was just a throwaway to sweeten the deal, a failed quarterback with no value to the team, and someone they were happy to give away for pennies on the dollar. Ouch. It was an almighty fall from grace for the former first overall pick. And you bet he was hurt by it.
You feel like you've been betrayed or like you're not wanted, and I think for me, ultimately, it was the fact that there wasn't a conversation had and that there wasn't like a...
To be cast aside by the very team that drafted you first overall, the same team you led to a Super Bowl, is a brutal blow. But to feel like little more than a throw into the trade package, that's salt in the wound. The former number 1 pick had gone from franchise cornerstone on a contender to bridge quarterback on one of the league's worst rosters, a placeholder while the front office figured out its next move at the position. Or so it seemed. While that was the view of most fans and media analysts, there was a very different plan being concocted in Motor City. New general manager Brad Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell absolutely wanted Jared Goff in the building as a key figure to help them turn their wayward ship around. They saw the quality in Jared Goff when others didn't, and more importantly, they saw the tough underdog spirit in him, which would be crucial in helping them establish their new culture. As a franchise that had come last in the division in each of the last 3 seasons and had not won it since 1993, picking the right leader was crucial. And as it turns out, they nailed their selection. As the starting quarterback for the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff has been nothing short of spectacular. After finding his footing on a bad roster in 2021, he leveled up in 2022 with 4,400 yards and 29 touchdowns before improving on both of those numbers in each of the next 2 seasons. With the help of some epic drafting by Brad Holmes, Jared Goff and the Lions posted their first winning season in 5 years in 2022 before breaking out with an unbelievable 12-5 record to win the division in 2023. Then, Goff secured his status as a Detroit Lions legend forever by delivering fans a first playoff victory in over 3 decades, right there at Ford Field, against who else but Sean McVay and the LA Rams. This was our first look at the dominant Detroit force that we see today, that can destroy opponents however they choose. In that 2023 campaign, the Lions were the 5th highest scoring unit, the 2nd best passing offense, and the 5th best rushing offense. Of course, their so-called bridge quarterback was a big reason why. He completed a then career-high 67.3% of his passes for 4,574 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. His turnover-worthy play rate percentage of 2.5 was the lowest of his career, and his 2.57 second average time to throw was tied for the 5th fastest in the NFL. That combination of quick delivery and elite production tells the story of a quarterback in the perfect system. Jared Goff is never going to be a quarterback who makes magic out of structure or who can threaten you with his legs, but if you give him a clean pocket and some weapons to play with, the results can be destructive. One of the main reasons for this is just how elite Goff is when it comes to quarterbacking fundamentals. He's so good at reading defenses and being decisive. Then, whenever he decides to pull the trigger, it is delivered with perfect timing and precision. His bread and butter is passing over the middle of the field, which is the high-risk, high-reward area to target. Being able to thrive here opens up the playbook so much for his offensive coordinator and adds a lot of stress to the defense. But there is so much more to his game than just finding his target. Goff is a menace with his ball fakes, which is such an underrated aspect of being a quarterback, because even the slightest hesitations by the defense can end up making a massive difference for him and his teammates. Take the stumble bum play from the 2024 season, for example. And if you want more evidence that Goff has some of the silkiest hands in the game, just look at how he fools a Seattle defender here. The poor guy celebrating what he believes is a sack, while the runner who received the handoff gallops upfield. Goff's manipulation on play-action passes and handoffs is second to none, and for defenses who are already having to worry about the many playmakers Detroit can utilize, this can make such a big difference. On top of all this, Goff has a fantastic pocket presence. He is so good at avoiding sacks, and whenever he does get hit, he bounces right back up and continues to fight for his team. This toughness is another very underrated aspect of Jared Goff's game, and a big reason why Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell picked him as the guy to lead their rebuild. Since his sophomore season in 2017, he has missed just 5 games in those last 8 completed seasons. Not only that, but his toughness and resilience is shown in games as well, in his ability to bounce back from interceptions and come up clutch when needed. In 2024, for example, Goff tied for 2nd in the NFL with 4 fourth-quarter comebacks, and 4th with 4 game-winning drives. While Jared Goff's lack of mobility will lead to him rarely being named amongst the league's most exciting quarterbacks, he should absolutely be celebrated for what he brings to the table. Because when you put him in an offense like the Detroit Lions, you get a complete mastery of the game, and an offense that can only be described as a work of art. What Detroit have done over the last few years is nothing short of spectacular. Their 564 points in 2024 were the 4th highest in NFL history, and they posted a combined 27-7 record over the 2023 and 2024 regular seasons. Of course, it helps having an elite running back duo of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and a versatile receiver group headed up by the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. But Goff makes them all tick. His 72.4% completion rate in 2024 is the 4th highest in NFL history, emphasizing just how special the 2024 Lions were. As part of their offensive revolution, Detroit have made going for it on 4th down trendy. It is now genuinely unusual to see them pass up an opportunity to go for it in 4th and short situations, no matter where they are on the field. This aggression is one of the key reasons why Detroit have been able to produce such a historic offense, extending drives and putting additional stress on the defense. But it's not just a case of having a ballsy coach and a complex book of play calls. If a coach wants to regularly go for it on 4th down, he needs to have utmost confidence in his playmakers, in particular, his QB. In Dan Campbell's case, this is absolutely true. He knows for a fact that whatever call his OC relays to Jared Goff, his quarterback will execute it perfectly. Whether it's creating misdirection through his sleight of hand on a handoff or delivering a perfectly placed pass, Goff has now proven that he can do it. The word for that is clutch, and it is a trait that Jared Goff has in spades. Now, the scary thing for the rest of the NFL is that with Ben Johnson gone, this offense doesn't appear to have skipped a beat. He was the hottest coach on the market last offseason for a reason, but as per usual, people underestimated Jared Goff. He and his Lions were regularly picked out as the favorites to regress in 2025, but here we are. Ben Johnson is gone, and these Lions look much the same, with Goff in imperious form and still looking like one of the most efficient, dangerous, and clutch quarterbacks in the NFL. The LA Rams' decision to trade him away will never be criticized because it did ultimately lead to them winning the Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean they didn't underestimate Goff's value and ultimately give the Detroit Lions one of the steals of the century. In taking the bold decision to trade away the franchise legend Matthew Stafford, Brad Holmes was able to repopulate his depleted roster with superstars on both sides of the ball. In total, the picks he got from Stafford turned into Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Broderick Martin, Jameson Williams, Josh Paschal, and Ifeatu Melifonwu. Of course, the cherry on top was Jared Goff, the so-called bridge quarterback who went from trade throw-in to top 10 signal caller. The LA Rams got their Super Bowl, and for that reason, the trade will always go down as a win for them. But at the end of the day, they also gave up a top 10 quarterback for pennies on the dollar, and for that, Detroit will always be grateful. It really was a rare win-win trade and a legacy-defining move for both franchises. For Jared, the story is far from over. His path to reclaiming a spot among the NFL's elite has been nothing short of remarkable. From #1 overall pick to Super Bowl heartbreak, through a crushing trade, and finally, a triumphant resurgence with the Lions, it's been a journey worth watching. He's become a hero in Detroit, and now, after proving himself once again in 2025, maybe, just maybe, the rest of the league will finally give him the respect he's earned. But what do you think? Is Jared Goff a top 10 quarterback in your eyes? Let us know in the comments.